Erev Tov, everyone. Good evening. Erev Tov and good evening. My rabbi, growing up, Rabbi Jerry Raskin, alav Sholom, taught that if you don't start on time, you never will. Because the community will just assume, oh, the rabbi, he or she will always start a little bit late. And the story goes, I'm sure it is, folklore, midrash, whatever, was that he once started a wedding without the mother of the groom, which is more believable than without the mother of the bride, but still a little bit of a stretch, I think. So anyhow, so we'll begin on time so that we can be respectful of your time. But I want to thank you for coming tonight. 150 or so people signed up. I know we have people watching online. Some called us to tell us they signed up, but they're going to watch online instead for whatever reasons. But we're so glad that you could come out tonight for Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who is here. Dr. Kedar, welcome. We just had a delicious dinner at the Maple Grill. I highly recommend it, in part because we were like one of 3 people in the restaurant. So please go and support the Maple Grill. This evening is done in partnership with B'nai B'rith Canada, and Aaron is going to introduce Dr. Kedar and talk about the mission of B'nai B'rith Canada in a moment. I just want to share a little bit about Temple Sholom, because I did hear from some of you here or in the community, why is Temple Sholom hosting Dr. Kedar? Wouldn't that be better a little further that way on Oak Street? But that's not how I view our congregation, and I hope it's not how you view our congregation. Temple Sholom is a big tent. We are proudly the largest synagogue west of Toronto, and it is, as the senior rabbi of this congregation, it is my intention and mission to bring in voices within the boundaries of the tent of the Jewish people that represent the spectrum of Jewish thought. I tell my children all the time, you only learn when you listen to people that you don't already agree with. And so you may hear things tonight that you don't agree with. You may hear things tonight that you wish I had said because you didn't agree with me about things that I have said, and that is perfectly fine. In fact, that is by design. But what I do ask, because we hopefully will have an opportunity for Q&A, is that one, when we get to the Q&A, and I'll remind you of this, it is Q and Dr. Kedar does the A. So you ask the question and he gives the answer, not the sermon. The sermon doesn't come from you. But also that we do so respectfully, and we do so as our rabbis teach, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven and also for the sake of truth. We ask questions to derive at a better understanding of what we don't understand, to squeeze out the truth, to try to find the nuance that we're missing, to find the puzzle piece, because we think we have the whole picture, but we're missing something, because if we had the whole picture, well, then the Messiah would have come. So we don't. We're missing something, and can we find that piece in listening to another? Even if it confirms for us that we came in with the right ideas all along, that's perfectly fine. But let's do so in a respectful way. I insist on it. And you know I have a history of if you don't act respectful in the congregation, I'll make that known too. But that won't be an issue tonight. So it's my pleasure to invite Aaron from B'nai B'rith Canada, our partner in sponsoring this evening, to share with you some words about B'nai B'rith Canada and an introduction for our speaker.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I know that Dr. Kedar's speech will be both engaging and enlightening, and at the same time, your presence here tonight is a commitment to strengthening and supporting the Jewish community, especially at a time when we're facing profound challenges across the country and across the world. So thank you again for being here. My name is Aaron Choplarosh, and I have the privilege to serve as the regional manager for B'nai B'rith Canada. We're co-hosting tonight's event with Temple Sholom, and I want to extend our sincere thanks to the synagogue for co-hosting this event. Temple Sholom, Rabbi Dan, Rabbi Brown are true leaders in this community, and we deeply appreciate their dedication and partnership in making evenings like this happen. B'nai B'rith Canada is the country's oldest Jewish human rights organization, and we're currently celebrating our 150th year anniversary. Thank you. Our mission is, thank you. Our mission is straightforward and unwavering. to combat anti-Semitism, to protect the rights, safety, and dignity of the Jewish community, and to fight hate in all of its forms. Here in British Columbia, my work involves supporting individuals who have experienced hate, advocating for Jewish students on campus, engaging with government and law enforcement and other stakeholders, and I'm ultimately ensuring that the concerns of the Jewish community are heard at every single level. And unfortunately, the demand for this kind of work has grown dramatically. B'nai B'rith Canada's 2024 annual audit of anti-Semitism, which some of you have, which I put out in the front in the foyer there, and I encourage everyone to take a copy. Our annual audit indicates that we had 6,219 incidents of hate against the Jewish community in Canada just last year. That's the highest number we've ever recorded in the more than 40 years that we've been tracking this data. That comes out to an average of 17 anti-Semitic incidents every single day. And as I mentioned, I hope there's still more copies of our audit left for you to take, and I encourage you to do so. And these incidents range from online harassment, threatening behavior, vandalism targeting Jewish institutions, to direct attacks against Jewish individuals. And while this sharp rise is connected to global events, especially since October 7th of 2023, what Jews in Canada are experiencing is not merely a political disagreement. It is hostility directed at people simply because they are Jewish. Many in our community feel less safe today than at any point in their lifetimes. Parents hesitate sending their kids to school. University students are increasingly targeted and isolated. And Jewish Canadians who have always lived openly and proudly now find themselves looking over their shoulders or questioning whether this is still the country that can still offer the sense of security that they once felt. And this is not the Canada that we believe in. And when I say we, I don't just mean myself or B'nai B'rith Canada. This is not the Canada that all of us here in this room believe in. And this is why B'nai B'rith Canada, along with the other organizations in the Jewish community, continue to speak out, to advocate, and to stand firmly with our community. And tonight's event is part of that overall effort. We strongly believe that one of the most powerful tools that we have in this fight is education. And having experts like Dr. Kedar, who can deepen our understanding, can help us make sense of the rapidly changing world around us. So it's therefore my honor to introduce Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Dr. Kedar is one of Israel's leading scholars of the Middle East. He's a senior lecturer in Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies at Bar-Ilan University, where he's taught for over 30 years. Dr. Kedar served for 25 years in Israeli military intelligence, specializing in Syria and regional Arab affairs. His expertise combines deep scholarly knowledge with real-world intelligence experience, which gives him a uniquely informed perspective on the forces shaping the Middle East and the world today. He's a well-known commentator in international media, and I must point out that one of the first times I saw Dr. Kedar was actually on Al Jazeera. I believe he actually was speaking Arabic on Al Jazeera, and I found that to be a very, very profound way of communicating with the outside world. And he's able to explain complex regional and global issues with clarity, honesty, and nuance. And as I said, I myself have been following Dr. Kedar's work for over 10 years now, and I can confidently say that at a time when the public discourse today is so often clouded by misinformation, confusion, inaccuracy, and just straight-out lies, Dr. Kedar brings context, depth, and a real commitment to truth. So with that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Mordechai Kedar.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid that this introduction would raise the expectations to heights which will be hard for me to meet. However, I'll try. Thank you so much. and I thank also Rabbi Dan for inviting me. I think it's the second time to speak in this nice place. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we are facing these days, we in Israel and diaspora, we are facing a high tide of hatred, partially because of the 2-year war which we are in already, but it started way before and will continue, unfortunately, after. And in order to understand what makes normal people hate Jews because they are Jews, I think we have to analyze it through history. I will not start with Paro in Egypt, who said, הנה עם בני ישראל רב ועצום ממנו, הבה נתחכמה לו, פן ירבה. Okay, Israelites in Egypt who were hated by the Egyptians. I will not go to that part of the history. But definitely, if you look at the roots of what we know as Jew hatred, and here I must give a comment. I don't like the term anti-Semitism, because Arabs are also Semites. And they keep claiming, how can we be anti-Semites when we are Semites? So you cannot blame us for being anti-Semites. Okay, so I blame them for being Jew haters. Okay? So I prefer Jew hatred or anti-Jewish sentiment, all these expressions which are meant to circumvent the anti-Semitism term. So just for the formula, yes. If you can silence your anti-Semite media, and whoever can't do it, there is a bucket of water outside, and here also, which can do the job. First of all, when we talk about classic Jew hatred, where do we find it? We find Jew hatred in two civilizations. One is the European Christian, what we call Western one, in Europe and the extensions of Europe, like Canada, like the United States, South America. And we find Jew hatred in the Eastern Arab Islamic world as well. We don't find anti-Jewish sentiments in India, in China, Japan, and Korea. Why? Why is this difference between the European Christian Western world and the Islamic Arab world on one side and all those in the East? And the answer is twofold. One reason is the religion. Both Christianity and Islam are religions which are derivatives of Judaism. Therefore, in order to establish their validity and their legitimacy, they must undermine the validity and the legitimacy of Judaism. Otherwise, why did they come to the world if Judaism is there? So they particularly have to attack Judaism as a religion and Jews as people who are still sticking to this religion in order to show themselves that they are the right religion, means Christians and Muslims, and not the Jews. Now, how do I know that this is the reason? The religions in India, China, Japan, and Korea traditionally have nothing to do with Judaism. There is no connection between Confucianism, Hinduism, Shintoism, and all those religions in that part of the world. Has no connection to Judaism. So they don't feel, Chinese and so forth, they don't feel that they have to denigrate or to humiliate or to oppress the Jew in order to prove to themselves that their religions are valid. Okay, so this is one reason, since Christianity and Islam are sons or derivatives of Judaism, that's why they need to act in a negative way vis-a-vis Judaism and Jews. This is one reason. Second reason is that Jews actually lived and still are living, less in the Arab world, but more in the Western world. During history, Jews lived in Europe, in America, in Western countries, and Jews also lived in Eastern countries, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, okay? Afghanistan. Jews lived in the Eastern world. So there were actually Jews to hate, the other with a big O, to hate. How do I know that this is a reason? Jews didn't live in India, only in one village named Kuchin that almost nobody heard about in India. Jews traditionally didn't live in China. The Jewish community of Shanghai started in the 20th century. Jews didn't live in Japan, and Jews didn't live in Korea. So there was no Jew to hate. There was no other to blame for shortcomings and for plagues and whatever they did. So the mere existence of Jewish communities within the cities, towns, villages in Europe and in the Arab world made the Jew an easy prey for hatred. Why? Because he's different. He looks different, he wears different, he speaks differently. His day of vacation every week is different. His religion is different. His language is different. So he's an other. And always when there are problems like plagues and all kinds of other things, the easiest thing is to blame the other. Plagues, in particular, drew much of attention because without vaccination, without all these modern ways how to treat diseases, people were dying from flu, from mumps, from all kinds of things which today is very easy to be cured. Those days, people were dying in big numbers. Jews were washing their hands after they went to the bathroom. And therefore, the Jewish participation in those diseases was usually lower because of this netilat yadayim, which you do before you touch your food and after you go to the bathroom. And yes, this actually caused jealousy within the others and hatred as a result. Jews traditionally were marginalized economically. In many cases, they could not buy land, they couldn't buy houses, and therefore they were actually running from place to place because of all kinds of haters, paritzim, here and there. And therefore, by the way, Jewish musicians usually played small instruments like violin, not double bass, not a cello, a flute, not a tuba. Why? It was easier to carry in order to run away with. If you have to pack fast before those are coming to kill you. So it is easier to run away with a fiddle rather than to run away with a double bass. Okay, no, it's not funny. It is the reason. This is why it can be carried very easily from place to place. After all, in many cases, or in many places, Jews were, since they were not allowed to buy or to purchase land or to purchase houses, anyway, they were subject to be thrown out from the city because of various reasons. So this was one of the results. Another cause for hatred was the fact that Jews were reading and writing. Illiteracy within Jews is almost non-existent in both Western world and the Eastern world, while, at least in Eastern Europe, many people, not Jews, were illiterate. In the Arab world, Islamic world, even more. Illiteracy in these environments was very wide, while the Jew, since they are kids, they know how to read because of the prayers, because of the Torah learning, and this creates jealousy because look at these kids, Jewish kids who know how to read, and we, the non-Jews, although we are men and women, we don't know how to read. This creates hatred. So with the years, this Jew hatred, because of these reasons, the religion, the mere existence of the Jews within these communities, definitely made the Jew the other, the ultimate other, subject for hatred and marginalization. 200 years ago, more or less, some countries, especially after the Enlightenment in Europe, started to give emancipation to Jews. Means equal rights, equal duties in some cases as well. And this also, instead of erasing the differences between Jews and others, actually increased the hatred, because now the Jew, the other, invades our circles. He becomes a lawyer, he becomes an accountant, he competes with us in our court. And, in Germany, in particular, there was a slogan within Jews, Heye Yehudi beveitecha v'Germani b'chutzot. Means, at home you are Jewish, you go around with the kippah, you perform everything which, all the mitzvot, netilat yadayim, birkat mazon, all these things. While if you are out, you go bloisenkopf, means without hair cover. You look like everybody else. You go with a necktie. You look like a German. This is frightening for them because all of a sudden the Jew looks like us, although he is different. And this is something which, at least partially, for some people, was frightening. Because as long as the Jew looks different, at least I know that he is what he is, I am what I am. He looks different. We know he is what he is, and what I am, this is what I am. But when he starts to look like me, is he like me or not? All of a sudden, he wants to look like a German, sound like a German, act like a German. What, is he a German? Really? This increases hatred because of the proximity, because of the similarity, which all of a sudden started to be. And I think that the fact that Germany was the hub of Jew hatred in Europe, at least partially, is a result of the emancipation which started in Germany. The fact that Jews also occupied prominent positions in the academic world in Germany also was one of the reasons. Look, in my field, in the studies of the East, means Arabic, Islam, Jews were the leaders of research. Names like Steinschneider, Goldziher, all these who established the Orientalism, and I mean the real, not the Edward Said, the real, the studies of the East, Schechter, Even Abraham Geiger, one of the founding fathers of the Reform movement, he was a researcher about Islam. He spoke Arabic, he knew Arabic, Hebrew as well. I don't know if you know about this, but he was he actually wrote a book which is one of the cornerstones of the research about Islam. He wrote a book in English, it was translated under the title, What Did Islam Take from Judaism? Everyone who studies Islam, or Judaism, definitely Islam, starts with this book, which is what? Almost 200 years old. This book, still valid until this very, of course, he didn't include everything, and other research which came later gave more things which Islam took from Judaism, but Avraham Geiger's book is one of the most basic books about research about Islam. It also brought jealousy. How come Jews are in the front of research, at least in this field? I don't know about other fields, but my heart tells me that Jews were in front of many other fields as well, in addition to Limudei HaMizrach, the Oriental studies. Okay? But at least in this field, the presence of Jews within the community of researchers is more than obvious. And this is one of the reasons Look, I must share with you something of my own experience in this issue, just to show something. In 2005, means 20 years ago, I was invited, I published an article, an essay, why Muslims hate the West. After September 11, the Homeland Security in the United States asked me to write such an essay, and I wrote. And at some point, like 2 or 3 months after I published it, they wanted to have a discussion in DC to discuss this issue of why Muslims hate the West. They sent me a ticket, and I went to DC, and the discussion was held in the discussion room of Hudson Institute. It's one of the think tanks in DC. And this was a big square desk with all kinds of people from all kinds of agencies, CIA, FBI, DEA, NSA, all kinds of, those who deal with Islam came, and many of them had the business card, US government. Not to be too specific, the US government. Okay, I think in the room there were some 30 people to discuss this issue of why Muslims hate the West. All of them are, jackets, neckties, and nice discussion. Towards the noon, I see that they bring lunch. These big round plates with fruits and vegetables cut very nicely with rings of onions, and I see that they're wrapped. Okay. I come out, it's all kosher, from a kosher restaurant. So what? For me? They ordered for everybody? Kosher meal? People come out from the room to eat. Most of them take out kippot from their pocket, put kippot, go make netilat yadayim. We are the minyan for mincha. Most of them are Jewish, Orthodox, or observant Jews. Of course, when they go to work, they go blazing kop, without head cover. But when they go to eat, they put the kippot, and to a degree that when we came back to continue the afternoon session, a guy who took part in this, Angel Rabassa, who represented Rand Institute, said that he started saying, apparently I'm the only goy in this room. That's what he said, the only goy. It was funny, But for me, it was something which bothered me very much. That Jews are, in my view, too much involved in this issue of research about Islam. Now, why are they? Because they speak Hebrew, many of them speak Arabic. Because Semitic languages, they have already the Hebrew. If somebody masters Hebrew, for him to study Arabic is one more step, because the morphology is the same, means verb, noun, the same systems. Syntax in Arabic is more or less the same syntax in Hebrew. So somebody who really knows Hebrew, for him to study Arabic, he has already good basis. So many of them spoke Arabic. And but the fact that most of those who are the researchers about Islam in all these agencies of the United States of America, for me, it was like some kind of a threatening thing. Sure enough, 2 or 3 years later, after this event, 2 researchers, one is named Mersheimer, and the other one is Walt, I forgot the first names, published a book, the United States and the Jewish Lobby, something like this, and the war on Iraq. Because those years were the war in Iraq since 2003. And this meeting was 2005, when the war in Iraq was in its peak. And means the insurgency in Iraq and number of coffins coming from Iraq every day. So in this book, these 2 guys, Mersheimer and Walt, blame the Jewish community in the States for being too much involved in the atrocities in Iraq. For me, it was not surprising after I saw that discussion in Hudson, where most of the people come out with kippot for lunch. Okay? So Jews do take part in this, after all, they are good researchers, and they know much about Middle East, about Islam. After all, they do have a background about this. So this is why they didn't become researchers only because of their nice eyes. Okay? So this is what I mean by Jewish presence in things which might draw attention or negative attention. So this is just only a footnote to show how sometimes Jews are too much in things which might not be viewed in a positive way. Because they are good researchers, let alone the fact that Jews are, 30% of the laureates of Nobel Prize. Okay, we are proud with this. There are some people who hate us for this, because we are the best doctors in town, we are the best lawyers, we are the best poets, we are the best violin players. Yes, but so what should we do? Should we be mediocre only because we don't ought to be hated? Okay, so this is when you are excellent, or when you excel in all kinds of things, people might hate you. Okay, so this is the more emancipation Jews received, especially since it started in Germany, the more people were afraid of this Jewish presence in these centers of knowledge and research. If we go forward in history, we go to let's say, towards the end of the 19th century, after the Spring of Nations, which started in 1848, means the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the emergence of the nations in Europe, Hungarian, Romanian, Slovak, Czech, Polak, all the nations which discovered themselves as nations. We started to see national writings like Pantadeusz of the Polish and others. We saw ethnic music being collected those years. Johannes Brahms collects Mecholot Hungarim, Hungarian dances. Antonin Dvořák collects Slavic dances. Okay, all this ethnomusicology, because nations started to discover themselves after they were marginalized under the empire, the Austro-Hungarian one. And here, the question is who we are. If we are Romanians, we are Christians, we speak Romanian, we share the same goals, or we share the same mindset, we dance to the same music, we eat the same food. Who doesn't? The Jew. He eats different food, he speaks different language, so he's not one of us. So the same thing in Czechoslovakia, in Czech, within the Czechs, within the Slovaks, within us. The more people became national, the more they saw the difference between themselves and the Jew. To a degree that Nazi Germany took this difference to a peak, to Jew hatred as it was in Nazi Germany, because Nazi Germany was the culmination of nationhood or nationalism as it was. So the more national you are, or the more you put an emphasis on your national characteristics, the more you see the difference between yourself and the Jew. So this is another thing. So as a result, came another ideology, the socialism and the communism, which meant to erase the differences between peoples and to create, let's say, the Soviet Union, which was based on fraternity of nations. As after all, the Soviet Union was a combination of many ethnic groups. So they invented this idea of fraternity of groups. And who is leading this? This erasing the nationalism, the Jew, Trotsky and Lenin with his roots. Okay, so the Jew is blamed when nationalism is in peak, and the Jew is blamed when nationalism is being pushed to the margin in order to enhance an opposite ideology. So every time the Jew is blamed for being the other or being part of the problem. Later, we start to see the Zionist movement. Zionist movement actually was another reason to hate the Jew. Why? Let's say Romanians. Let's imagine that we have a little town in Romania with problems of employment, problems of poverty, problems of alcoholism, as well, and they had them all. The Jews are starting this new ideology of Zionism, to leave the country and to go to Eretz Israel. What? You're going to leave us and go to a better place? We hate you. Okay, so the mere fact that the Jew had an alternative, especially today, to leave failing countries or failing societies or societies which are inflicted by problems, and he has an alternative that he can migrate and go and to be accepted in his own place, creates a problem, creates hatred. Why should he have an alternative while we don't? We are doomed to stay here in Romania, for example, and the Jew has an alternative. As a result, my parents, when they came from Poland, my mother tongue is Yiddish, so they told us when we were kids, in Poland we heard all that's what they heard. Demonstrations, go to Palestine, means go away from us. In Poland, go to Palestine, means Palestine is your country, go away to Palestine. So this is what people actually said. Leave us. We want to get rid of you. And then the state of Israel, when it started, another portion of hatred, especially in the Arab world. And here comes, I think, the source of Jew hatred, the biggest of today, which comes from the Arab and the Islamic world, through the media and through other things. And here we have to understand the mindset of Muslims when they see the state of Israel, regardless of its size, even before the occupation of 1967. I'm talking the occupation of 1948. How they look at us. And this is I would say, what characterizes the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is the Beit Midrash of the radical Islamism as we see today. And there are many others, but this is the problem, so I'll talk about this. Those who think like the Muslim Brotherhood see Israel, the state of Israel, as something which has absolutely no right to exist as a state. And the question is why? The explanation is like some layer cake. The most basic reason is their belief that Judaism is null and void. Is in Arabic, Deen Batil. Deen is religion. Batil is Batel, Mevutal, yani cancelled. Why? Judaism was cancelled 2,000 years ago by Christianity, and Christianity was cancelled 14 centuries ago by Islam. So Judaism was cancelled twice. Once it was replaced by Christianity, and second time is by Islam. So, since Judaism is null and void, why do we need a Jewish state if there is no Jewish religion? Okay, so this is the first layer, the most basic. On this, there is another layer about the land, Eretz Israel. In their view, Eretz Israel entirely is an Islamic land. Islamic land. Why? It once was under Islamic rule. Between 628, when Eretz Israel was first occupied by Islam, until 1917, until the First World War. So, for like 13 centuries, Eretz Israel was under Islamic rule, and forever Israel should remain because, according to their belief, according to the Sharia, any land in the world has only one-way ticket to enter the house of Islam, not to get out. Therefore, by the way, Spain and Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, should return to be Islamic because once it was under Islamic rule between 711 and the end of the Reconquista, and the end of the 15th century. Okay? It was Islamic, and so it should remain forever. The island of Sicily, southern Italy, was under Islamic rule for a while. It should remain under Islamic forever. Large parts of the Balkans, Greece, what today Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, all the way to the gates of Vienna, capital of Austria. When they were defeated, when the Ottomans were defeated for the first time in September 11, 1683. Now you know why September 11 was chosen in 2001, okay? In order to take revenge on their defeat on September 11, 1683. Bin Laden talked about this, so it's obviously it's the reason for the choosing of that date. So Eretz Israel should remain under Islamic rule. Who in the world has the permission to take an Islamic land and to give it to Jews? What? Lord Balfour, the evangelical Minister of Foreign Affairs or the British government? Who gave him this land to promise it? Means the Balfour Declaration. To give it to the Jews? What? Did it belong to his father? To his mother? It belongs to us. They took it illegally from the Ottoman Empire. And now, and they say in Arabic, Man la yamlik a'ataha liman la yastahiq. One who did not own it gave it to those who do not deserve it. Jews. Okay? So, and later, after 1917, the San Remo Convention of the League of Nations, which took the Balfour Declaration, which was a letter sent by Balfour to the Zionist movement in Britain. They took this letter and they turned it into a binding, until this very day, a binding legal document of the international community of those days, embodied by the League of Nations. By the way, the United Nations, in its Article 80 of the Charter, adopted all the decisions of the League of Nations, including the San Remo decision, to give the Jewish people the land of Israel. So legally, according to the Charter of the United Nations, the land from the river to the sea belongs to the Jewish people. Okay? And this is not the Bible. It's the legal basis of modern life in the world. So, who voted? Japan, Russia, Argentina. Who the heck gave them this land to vote, to give it to the Jews? Japan owns the land of Israel to give it to the Jews? So when Muslims see all these things, they say, who the heck gave those peoples or nations the permission to give it to the Jews? It belongs to us. So this is the second problem, the land, which is Islamic. Third problem, which they view us, is that Jews are not a nation. Jews are communities, which belong to all the nations in the world. For example, a Jew in Canada is a Canadian citizen who happen to be Jewish, just like other Canadian citizens who are Christians or Muslims or whatever they are. He's Canadian. A Jew in Morocco is a Moroccan Arab who happen to be Jewish, just like other Moroccan Arabs who are Muslims. A Jew in Yemen is a Yemenite Arab who happen to be Jewish and so forth. A Jew in Russia is a Russian national who happen to be Jewish, just like other Russians who are Christians or Muslims. So there is no Jewish nation. There are Jewish communities who they look different, they sound different, they speak different languages, they eat different food, they wear different clothing, they dance to different music, they speak different languages. Since when they are one nation? Religion does not make a nation. Why? Islam. There are many nations in Islam. There are Arabs, there are Persians, Kurdish, Turkish, Baluchis, Kazakhis, Uzbekis, Tajikis, many. So what? Islam made them all one nation? Not at all. These are Arabs, these are Persians. Same with Christianity. There are many Christians in the world, in Korea, in Norway, in Canada, in South America, in Africa. So what? Christianity made them all into one nation? No, this is Korean, this is African. So why should Judaism galvanize the Russian and the Yemenite and the Iraqi and the Moroccan and the Canadian to be one nation? Since when a religion makes a nation? Okay? So they actually project their situation on us. Therefore, they don't accept the idea that there is a Jewish nation. Because Judaism is a religion. It's not a nationhood. Okay, so if there is no Jewish nation, why do they need a state? Another problem, in their view, is that anyway, Jews, according to the Islamic Sharia, should live under the Islamic protection as dhimmis. And here I must recommend to read a very important book which was written about this by Bat Ye'or. Bat Ye'or is the pen name of a Jewish lady named Giselle Littman, lives near Lausanne in Switzerland. She was born in Alexandria of Egypt. That's why she called herself Bat Ye'or, the daughter of the Nile. And every year, I'm telling you, I'm fully jealous. Every year she writes a new book about something in Islam, and all her books are based on Islamic sources. She reads Arabic, of course, and many researchers based on her book, their views and researches. So she wrote once a book, I think the title is Islam and Dhimitude. Dhimitude means the status of dhimmis. Dhimmis are those who live under the yoke of Islam, like Jews and Christians. Okay? They are tolerated religiously, but have to live in maskana. Maskana in Arabic, like in Hebrew, miskenut, in poor situation under Islam. For example, a Jew, when he walks in the street, he should be marked with yellow patch. This was not created by the Nazis in the 30s. This was created, this idea, in Baghdad of the 9th century, in the days of the Abbasid dynasty, Islamic Abbasid dynasty, 9th century CE. Christians should be marked with purple, parallel to the yellow in Jews. Why? Because both Jews and Christians are impure. And therefore, Muslims should refrain from touching them when they are walking in the street. So this is why they have to be marked. The Nazis took it from the Muslims in Baghdad of the 9th century. A Jew and a Christian should walk in the middle of the street while the Muslims on the side. Why? In the middle of the street, there's the sewer. In those days, in the Middle Ages, they didn't have sewage system under the city. Everything which came out from the households was in the street. And not only from the kitchens. Everything was in the street. So the Jew and the Christian have to walk in the sewage canal, okay, in order to denigrate them, because they are holding to the wrong religion. A Jew and a Christian should pay the jizya. Jizya is the head tax every month. And it states in the Quran, Midoraita, it said in the Quran that the Jew and the Christian, when they pay, they should pay the jizya from their hand while they are humiliated. Wahum sarirun, as it is in Arabic. Stated in the Quran. So, in order to implement it literally, in many cases, in many places, many times, when the Jew and the Christian came to the tax collector to pay the jizya, they were forced to crawl on the ground, give the money from their hand, as it said in the Quran, get kicked and run out of the room in order to implement wahum sarirun, while they are humiliated, as it stated in the Quran. So this is another thing. A Jew and a Christian are not allowed to ride a horse, only a donkey, to belittle them. The Jewish home and the Christian home should be lower than the Muslim home. And of course, the synagogue and the church should be lower than the mosque in order to show who is superior and who is inferior. And many, many more halachot or rules under which Jews were allowed to live in Islamic countries. In Yemen, they had a rule that any orphan, Jew boy or a girl, should be given to the imam, means to the Muslim authorities, in order to Islamize him or her. In many other cases, other things, I will elaborate on this. So, this is how Jews should live under the yoke of Islam. Now, as a result, from the fact that Jewish religion is null and void, the land belongs to Islam. Jews are not a nation, and anyway they have to live under the yoke of Islam. The bottom line of all these things is that the state of Israel, as a statehood or Jewish statehood, has absolutely no justification, because Jews should live under the rule of Islam. So the state of Israel actually is a religious challenge which they cannot accept. For them, it looks like a religious threat on Islam. Why? Because all these things, the fact that Israel has land, that Israel is an army, has a police, has a government, sovereignty, okay, recognized by the world, it means, in their view, that Judaism came back to life in the form of a state, army, police, ministries, sovereignty, land. The Judaism actually went through since the end of the 19th century with the Aliyot and everything which happened in Eretz Israel, is that Judaism actually went through a process of resurrection after it was cancelled twice by Christianity and by Islam. They cannot take it. It creates some kind of a short in their mind. Kurzschluss, as they say in German. You know, it can't happen. It cannot be. The Judaism came back to life. And not only this, Judaism came back to life by a conspiracy of Judaism and Christianity. Means Balfour, the evangelical, since 1917, all the way to Trump, who is supported by the evangelicals who moved the embassy of the United States from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Who the heck gave him Jerusalem? It is holy to Islam. So, the state of Israel, actually, in their view, since it is a challenge, religious challenge, because it is some kind of something which is totally against Islam, against all these views of Islam to Israel and the Jews, they cannot accept such a thing. And this situation deserves jihad, a religious war, in order to save Islam from the resurrection of Judaism, which is supported by Christianity, Balfour and after. This is today the main cause of Jew hatred in the Islamic world. The problem is that this hatred migrates with masses of Muslims to the Western world. What you see today in France, you see it in Germany, Belgium, Holland, I believe in this country as well. When they come from wherever they come from, they bring the emotions, they bring the concepts, they bring the beliefs vis-a-vis Israel, which were there, now they are here. And today we are talking about the meeting of the red and green hatred or Jew hatred. Means red, the communist, the green, the Islamist. And this is what we see today on the background of the fact that the state of Israel, at least in the Islamic world, is a theological problem before it is anything else. By the way, the Vatican has more or less the same problem with Israel. The first time which the Vatican started to recognize Israel was in the 60s, like 15 or more years after the state was established. And the first visit of the Pope in Israel, he asked to erase the symbol of the Israeli train from the cars of the train because it looks like Magen David. He didn't like it at all. So unfortunately, Israel was forced to erase in order to enable him to come to Eretz Israel. So yes, the Catholic Church has also some theological problems with the existence of the state of Israel, parallel to the Islamic rejectionism of the state of Israel and what we see today. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of Israel was supposed maybe to solve the Jewish problem. But what we see, that the existence of the state of the Jews actually worsened the situation, especially when this state struggles to survive, as we see during the last 2 years. The demonstrations against Israel, and implicitly, if not explicitly also, against Jews wherever they are and whoever they are, and as we see in campuses, erupted on the 8th of October, one day after the attack on us, which took the lives of 1,200 Israelis who were killed, butchered, burnt, and raped. And I must commend here what Rabbi Dan made outside. I saw the memorial to that atrocity, highly, highly appreciated. So when Israel has some attack like this, we would expect that the civilized world at least will sympathize with us, with what happened with the victims of what happened in Gaza. But what, this sympathy passed after what? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and turned into demonstrations against Israel only because Israel defends itself against vicious people who are hiding behind their wives and children as they do in Gaza. So yes, we are in some kind, I wouldn't say quagmire, but I would say problem that the more Israel proves to the others that Israel, that the state of Israel is there to stay, the more Jew hatred it creates today in many other places, including here. A state which should have solved the Jewish problem apparently doesn't solve it, because this is what we see. Could be that the reason is the second reason which I talked about, the mere existence of Jews within others. And yes, maybe if Jewish people did not live in Vancouver, maybe the people in Vancouver didn't have whom to hate. But it's not sure. Why? In 2005, right after the conference in DC, when I came back to Israel, I went again with my mother, my late mother and my sister, to Poland to visit my mother's birthplace in Brzezin, near Lodz. And my father's also in Radom, southern Poland. And in Lodz, there is no Jew for who knows how many decades. Not even one Jew lives in Lodz. But wherever you go in Lodz, you see hanging bar, how do you say it? Amud Tliya. What? Okay, you see. And the loop is in the shape of Magen David. The loop is in the shape of Magen David. You see it in the streets. It's Jew hatred without Jews. So to say that if Jews leave exile and all will go to Eretz Israel, this will solve the problem of Jew hatred, I'm not sure. Because what you see in Lodz is definitely Jew hatred without Jews. Okay? So there are people who describe anti-Jewish sentiment or Jew hatred as some kind of a disease, which is very hard to be cured. Maybe it is correct. Thank you so much.
Can we take a few questions?
Yeah. I will take questions or remarks.
So we have a microphone here, and if you'd like to ask Dr. Kedar a question, just raise your hand, and I will come as quickly to you as I can. Remember, this is the Q part of Q&A, not the A part of Q&A.
I'm finally putting two and two together with you, Doctor. I saw you on the podcast with Yishai Fleischer several times, and now I can actually hear you in person. My question to you has to do with the sale of F-35s to Saudi Arabia by President Trump. How do you see that changing the balance of power and the threat to Israel, not today, but down the road, should there be regime change in Saudi Arabia and a movement that is not compatible?
Well, these are two different questions. The F-35 in Saudi hands, frankly, I'm not afraid. Because the Saudis are, let's say, a leading country in the Islamic world, no doubt. They have much money, no doubt. But as fighters, as combatants, they are rather lousy. Seriously. They fought against the Houthis 8 long years. and the Houthis just slaughtered them whenever they liked. The Saudi, I'll give you a good example. The Saudis once sent a whole infantry brigade to Yemen to fight the Houthis. And they were walking, all this brigade was marching in a valley leading to Yemen, because they have shared borders, The Yemenite, means the Houthis, knew that they are coming, so they were waiting for them in the hills overlooking this valley. And when this brigade marched into this place where the Houthis were, they started to shoot at them from 1 minute, and they just killed them all. This is stupidity. This is not the way how to run an army. They have absolutely no knowledge of how to run an army. Another thing about Saudi Arabia, you might remember what happened in October 2018, when they wanted to get rid of Khashoggi. Remember in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. You remember this case where the Turks took pictures of everything, and I collected all the information about this event, and I analyzed it from the intelligence point of view. They committed more or less 40 mistakes, at least 40 mistakes. You want to get rid of somebody, there are ways how to do it, if you really want to do it, in a way which will not incriminate you. But they did every possible mistake. That's why the whole world knows that who did it and what and they were actually described by the Biden administration as a rogue state almost. Okay, so I'm not afraid of the Saudis when it comes to airplanes. They will mess these airplanes as well. This one thing. Secondly, about regime change. Regime change in Saudi Arabia is very hard because Saudi Arabia is actually based on the ruling family. And the ruling family in Saudi Arabia today is thousands of people, because the founding father, the Abdulaziz ibn Saud, the father of King Salman of today, the state is run by his son, Muhammad bin Salman, but the king is still alive. So MBS, Muhammad bin Salman, is only the prince crown, the crown prince. But his father, his grandfather was the one who founded the kingdom, Abdulaziz ibn Saud. The man had some 50 wives, 50. You know why he could have so many? They didn't use credit cards. Those years. So he could have 50 wives. So imagine that every one of those is giving birth every year. So imagine how many children he had. And this is actually the ruling family. Okay? So these are very big family and so far consolidated. So I don't see a regime change in Saudi Arabia. However, what I can see is the fact that the MBS, at least the way he started his being the crown prince, it was very negative. Because of various reasons. First of all, why should he succeed his father? Because so far the kings were brothers of each other. And he will be the first to delegate the kingdom to the third generation, to the grandchildren of the founding father. Why should he be the first? There are sons of the former kings who are older than him, much more experienced than him, and much more normal in their behavior. Okay? The man didn't do anything until he became the crown prince. What he did is collecting yachts and Porsche cars. Okay? But and they did something for the state. But His father decided, and so far he is the crown prince. Whether he will be the king after his father dies, I'm not sure. We all also remember how he captured many of his cousins in the 1,000-star prison in Riyadh. What's the 1,000-star prison? The Ritz-Carlton Hotel. He imprisoned some dozens of his cousins, means princes, who happen to be billionaires as well. He imprisoned them in this hotel, and whoever wanted to go out had to pay ransom. Okay? And two of them who refused to go to this jail, in some miraculous way, found their end of life in those days.
We don't want anybody to feel imprisoned here, so I'm going to move us on to the next couple of questions.
So what I'm saying is that if Muhammad bin Salman at the end of the day will not be the next king, don't be surprised.
Right here, and then we'll try to do these as quickly as we can, Dr. Kedar.
I have a quick question about Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. I recently heard that the Crown Prince said that some hadith are not necessarily true. Is what I thought I heard correct? And if so, would that be an indication of a reformation of Islam? And in the Gulf countries, how do they reconcile jihad with their peace with Israel? Are they ignoring it, or have they come to some resolution around those issues?
Well, these questions definitely deserve a whole lecture, but in order to answer, 12 centuries ago, the hadith was actually registered, means written. Until then, it was by heart. And the 9 scholars who registered the hadith, left some 95% of the hadith which they knew out. Why? Suspected to be lie, or to be invented, or to be concocted. Since the hadith was by heart for 200 years, everybody could invent, and many hadiths were already then. So 12 centuries ago, already then Muslims claimed that large parts of the hadith are forged. So the fact that somebody comes today and say it again, it's no chidush. It's Muslims claim it for over 1,000 years, that significant parts of their oral tradition is forged. So there's nothing new in this. And the other question about the Gulf states, yes, very important question. Yes, not all the Muslims share this layer picture with in the Gulf, for example, Abu Dhabi, for example, their kind of Islamic view is live and let live. Means mind your own business. Look at yourself, look at your behavior. Are you loyal to Allah? Are you performing the mitzvot? This is what you should be concerned about, yourself. Leave the others alone. To a degree, as I told you, one of the rules of Islam is that the Jewish home or the Jewish synagogue should be lower than the church, and the synagogue and the church should be lower than the mosque. In Abu Dhabi, they built the Abrahamic compound, 3 magnificent buildings made of concrete and wood only. One is a church, one is a mosque, and one is a synagogue. And the synagogue has also Beit Midrash and a mikveh, to that degree. All of them the same height, the same width, the same length, the same exactly to the millimeter, the same size, especially the same height. What, doesn't know the Sharia? That the mosque should be higher than others? Of course he knows. But he says, I don't follow this rule. Okay? Not only this, as you know, Judaism and Christianity are tolerated in Islam because they are not idol-worshipping religions. Hinduism, Shintoism, Buddhism, Confucianism are all idol-worshipping religions, which in Islam should be demolished. Okay? In Abu Dhabi, there are many people from India who happen to be Hindus. And one of the advisors of the founding father, the Sheikh Zayed, was one of them, an Indian guy, very bright guy. So one time, the Sheikh Zayed asked him, where do you Indians gather, for your festives? So he said, we don't have any place because it's not forbidden. It's forbidden in Islam. So he said, what do you mean? You should have a place. So he said, but we don't have land. So yeah, okay, I'll give you land for my own. So he gave them a piece of land from his own land. After a while, he asked him, what did you do with this land? So we told him, we did nothing because we don't have the money to build. So he says, go build and send me the bill. Means the founding father of the Emirates, not only that he didn't destroy Beit Avodah Zarah, idol worshiping, he financed a Beit Avodah Zarah on his own land. Okay? This is the man. And he was religious Muslim, buried in the big mosque which was built on his name. And 24/7, there are people there who are citing the Quran on his soul. When I visited there, I said the Fatiha on his name, means the Kaddish, the Islamic Kaddish. They were rather satisfied to see a Jew saying it.
Doctor, thank you. Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned the Red-Green Alliance, which is the relationship between communists and Islam. And recently there's been talk of the Muslim Brotherhood being the Trojan horse entering into overt North American politics and also covert institutions within North America to do probably a lot of damage. And we all know that they're extremely focused on Jew hatred, to use your term. Would you like to comment on that?
Definitely. First of all, I highly recommend, if you Google, please write it down, Google IPT, Investigative Project on Terrorism, IPT, this is an organization in DC, Explanatory Memorandum. Google these three things together, IPT, Explanatory Memorandum. You'll find a document written by the Muslim Brotherhood representation in Florida in May 1991, means 34, more or less, years ago. This document was found by the American authorities in the framework of the investigation against an organization named Holy Land Foundation. Holy Land Foundation, although it sounds like Christian, it belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood here, means in the United States, and supported Hamas. And since Hamas is defined as a terror organization, whoever sponsors Hamas is also not a nice person. So they searched one of the homes in Florida, which belonged to one of those people, and they found this document. This document, which I highly recommend to download and to read, it is PDF, you can download it for free, is 16 pages in Arabic and 16 pages official translation in English. So if you don't master Arabic yet, you can read it in English as of page 17 until the end. This document describes in details what is their plan, means the Muslim Brotherhood plan for America, North America, how to Islamize this country. It can take 10 years, 100 years, doesn't matter, because there is a verse in the Quran which says, "In illa Allah ma'a sabirin." Allah is with those who have patience, and they do have a lot of patience. So they show how they are going to be immersed into the American society, including Canada, in order to convert it to Islam at some point. In the last page of this document, page number 16, it mentions the list of organizations which are actually on the ground operating in order to implement this plan, how to convert America to Islam. One of them, for example, is MSA, Muslim Student Association, an organization on campuses, I think here as well, which actually is the herald of anti-Jewish activity, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and implicitly, if not explicitly, Jew hatred organization, MSA, run by the Muslim Brotherhood, sponsored by Qatar. Okay, Qatar. Now, 3 of these organizations, which are mentioned in that list, united a few years later and created CARE, the Committee on American Islamic Relations. So CARE is also in this list by the names of the 3 organizations which made CARE. Okay? Although CARE by name doesn't appear, it's like the maiden names of CARE is there. So this is what everybody, in my view, should learn by heart, because this is the wake-up call to anyone on this continent.
We have another question right here.
Thank you. Dr. Kedar, you alluded to Balfour and San Remo, so going back to that period for more than 100 years now, the British arbitrarily gave roughly 78% of the land that was part of the Palestine Mandate to create Transjordan. The Hashemites came in. Of course, they're not indigenous to that area, and from what I understand, maybe as much as 95% of the people there, if there are in fact a Palestinian people, those people are roughly 95% of the inhabitants of that land. And yet we never hear anything when people talk about two-state solution. We never hear about, even from Israelis, even on the right, not so much, about, well, they have their land, it's just a different name, but it is Palestine. And I'm trying to understand why we don't hear more about it and what your thoughts are about that.
You know, the first rule in maintenance engineering is, if something works, don't fix it. Are you familiar with this? Right. The kingdom of Jordan still works. So nobody really wants to start re-engineering Jordan to be something else, only to save Israel as a Jewish state. Okay? So as long as Jordan is functioning as a kingdom under the Hashemite family, who were actually kicked away from Mecca, and they were given a job to rule Jordan in 1924. So nobody in the world wants to touch this kingdom as long as it works well so far. Yes, you're right that the majority of the people in this kingdom are Palestinians, but the world is not impressed by this. The world doesn't want to change anything in Jordan as long as it works. Why destroy something which works? So this is more or less, I think, answers your question.
We're going to take the last question here, but Dr. Kedar is going to hang around for an oneg afterwards.
Thank you for coming tonight. Something I'm interested in is sort of this inconsistency in maybe in Islamic thought. And it goes back to the Quran itself, which I'm not an expert in, I've never read. But one of the things that I've been watching is sort of debates where a Jew and a Muslim basically talk about the scripture itself. And it says that in the Quran that Israel is mentioned many times, and it's also mentioned as a place for the Jews. And I'm wondering if that's true, like, and that sort of also ties into the sort of the Abraham Accords. And if it is true that in Islam it says that the land is for the Jewish people. And then in modern times now, some of these countries are saying, yes, we acknowledge you and we will work with you, and others are saying no. What is the truth? Like, what's true and what's not true?
Well, there is a verse in the Quran which says that Allah says to Bani Israel, means the sons of Israel, O my people, enter my holy country which I subscribed for you. Great, right? Allah tells us to go to His holy land which He subscribed for us. Yes, but the next verse says that the Israelites refused because there were giant people in the land, and first they told Allah, first get rid of those and then we'll go in. Means they didn't rely on Him. Actually, this is Parashat Shlach, the Parashat of the Meraglim, of the spies, who, frightened the people because of the Anshe Midot, people with large measurements, at least that's how they describe them, were frightening them. Means the meaning is that the Israelites did not rely on Allah. And this is why Allah got angry at them and He threw them to the desert for 38 more years to wander in the desert. So exactly what the Parashat Shlach tells us, and this is actually what you mean by oh, my people, come into my holy land which I subscribed for you. The pasuk is very nice, but the context is not flattering to the Israelites. So this is one thing. Secondly, in Islam, or in the Islamic sources, there is a very clear definition or division between the Israelites and the Jews. For us, it's more or less the same, because Jews are from Judea, means the Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda, which is part of Am Israel, one tribe. Okay, so it's more or less synonym. In the Arabic discourse, in the Islamic discourse, Banu Israel is an ancient nation which disappeared, just like the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Phoenicians, the ancient Egyptians, and so the Israelites. What you see today, the Jews, actual people whom we see, are all descendants of the Khuzaris who converted to Judaism in the 16th century. Means there is no connection between the Israelites, which are mentioned in the Quran in many times, and the Jews of today, the actual people which you can see and feel. So, excuse me? Where did you say that comes from, what you just said? No, this is the concept in Islam. This is the Islamic concept. Just like there is no connection between the Babylonians and the Iraqis of today, no connection between the Assyrians and the Syrians of today, or the Phoenicians and the Lebanese of today, or the pharaohs and ancient Egypt and the Egyptians of today. Okay? The same thing is between the Israelites and the Jews of today. No connection. They claim, we claim that we are descendants of the Israelites. They don't accept it. This is why if this land of Israel was the land of the Israelites, so what? Anyway, there is no connection between the Jews of today and the Israelites of yore. If what? You can ask even worse. The Yemenite Jews, which, the Yemenite community, actually, the roots are from the days of Solomon, King Solomon, who started to send people from Judea to that part of the world, to manage the trade between Yehuda and Shva, the kingdom. Yes, but, in many cases, you can see that they have a very strict rule in the Islamic world. Don't mix my theories with facts.
Thank you, Dr. Kedar. Thank you all. Thank you. I want to thank you for your participation tonight. I said we'd start on time and we would end on time. It's now exactly 9 o'clock. We do have coffee and some desserts in our social hall. A thank you again to our partner, B'nai B'rith Canada, and Aaron for bringing Dr. Kedar to our community. I wish you all an Erev Tov. Thank you.